Good morning. Thanks so much for taking time to join us today. Really pleased to see so many people have signed up for this sustainability webinar. I'm Mike Raven. I'm the Sustainability Manager for YORhub. It's myself and my colleagues who are here to deliver this seminar. This is a continuation of a bit of a series of webinars that the YORhub regularly produce on a range of subjects related to the framework. We're intending for the duration to be about an hour in total. We're going to try and make sure there's plenty of time for Q&As at the end. Just in mind of Q&As, if you can possibly put them into the Q&A box as they occur to you, and then what we'll do is we'll review all the questions and we'll answer those at the end of the session. And we will send around the presentation slides after the session as well. So just running through the agenda for today then. So I'm going to kick things off just giving a bit of a introduction to sustainability in YORhub. I'm going to be talking about the national picture and how YORhub strategies fit into that, and also give you a bit of an update on some of the research we've recently been doing. I'll then hand over to my colleague Seep. Suhaib is a PhD student at Leeds Beckett University that YORhub are sponsoring, and he's looking at quite a challenging subject in terms of producing a carbon KPI for YORhub. This is a really kind of key piece of research because although it's for YORhub, we are also looking at how that links in with the rest of the national frameworks as part of the National Association of Construction Frameworks. So it's going to have potentially quite big ramifications for the sector. So it's really good to get that update from Suhaib. And then I'm going to hand over to my colleagues at COAS, who are giving a showcase on how to naturally reduce your carbon impact through specification of materials as part of your construction project. So it's a really good opportunity for everyone on the call to kind of see how they can minimise their environmental impact. So let's get started.
So just to kind of set the scene and confirm, for everyone why we're here today. So the government's carbon budget legally commits the UK to cutting carbon emissions to net zero by 2050, with an interim target of 78% from 1990 levels by 2035. Now, 4/10 of the carbon emissions produced in the UK and around the world arise from construction activity. So we in the sector are a massive contributor in terms of carbon emissions. That means we also have a massive opportunity to reduce those emissions and to have a real and lasting impact on the country. Then sort of how that feeds down to us. You've got your HM Treasury Green Book. This describes how major public sector projects are evaluated. And since 2020, we've seen revisions to the Green Book, and the focus has been moved away from cost benefits analysis to strategic objectives and measuring the impact of schemes locally, and requiring projects to consider their impacts on carbon emissions. It talks more about whole life costs in terms of carbon. So it's something that, if you're doing a major public sector scheme, that it should already be on your radar that you're having to do this. And then the construction playbook, gives us this real guidance on how to reach the 2050 net zero commitment. Again, talks about like whole life carbon approaches in order to reduce carbon emissions in our buildings, infrastructure, and across our supply chains. So giving that national picture, and it's a big ask for a lot of public sector clients. How does YORhub help with that? So our frameworks have always included best practice elements which are recommended in the playbook, such as the Cabinet Office recommended NEC contracts, contractual requirements in terms of employment skills, sustainability, and promotion of supply chain engagement to support our overarching client requirements. And I know the YORhub 3, the YORbuild 3, the most recent frameworks, they've kind of given an evolution to those requirements to kind of further align with the playbook. Again, we've been sponsoring Suhaib's PhD, and we'll be hearing from Suhaib in a minute. We have also trialled historically some carbon KPIs as YORhub, so we are well placed to bring into place a formal KPI to measure and monitor the reduction of carbon emissions on our schemes. A lot of our contractors, including COAS, who are with us today, they're already up to speed and monitoring carbon in certain ways, and YORhub's opportunities really to align those and ensure that our best performance that are sharing their knowledge, so the supply chain as a whole can improve. And we've also, as YORhub, signed up to the carbon reduction code produced by Cambridge Centre for Smart Infrastructure and Construction. So that application's went in a little while back, and I know we've got a few sort of questions and bits and pieces we just need to work through to complete our signatory position on that. But we're really pleased to be able to do that. And just before I hand over to Seep then, what we've also done over the last sort of few months is we've been doing a lot of research with our contractors, because we're aware that we're bringing in sort of these carbon KPIs, putting in more expectations on our contractors in terms of sustainability. So we were really keen to see how prepared and how ready our contractors were for that. And as you can kind of see from the research that we've done, there's a lot of very, very high percentages from our contractors showing their preparedness for all kinds of sustainability measures. So, I think pretty much every contractor that we obtained research from, they already have policies protecting the natural environment. Vast majority have already implemented best practice measures in terms of controlling invasive and non-native species. Ethical sourcing policy, vast majority of contractors are already on board with that. Net zero carbon targets, again, contractors are up there with this. They're not all aligned, and that's something that, again, as YORhub, we have a role to play in taking our clients' requirements in terms of net zero carbon and working with our contractors to try and align everyone so we're all singing from the same hymn sheet. But contractors are already making strides in setting these targets and working towards them. 4 out of 5 YORhub firms are already undertaking carbon monitoring of some manner. So again, it's for YORhub to help align the contractors so we're all measuring the same things. But it's just really a promising piece of research that we did, just to kind of show that that our contractors have taken the bit between the teeth, and they're up for this challenge in terms of carbon reduction and sustainability. And it does put us and our clients, I feel, in a really good place to be able to show that we are delivering our best practice already. I don't want to take up too much time, because I think you'll get a huge amount out of the presentations from Suhaib and from our colleagues at Colas. So if I could ask Suhaib if you want to share your slides, and I'll hand over to yourself.
Sure. So thank you so much, Mike, for that wonderful piece of introduction. So in order not to take our time, so I'm Suhaib Arogundade, YORhub sponsored PhD at Leeds Beckett University. And just to take off from where Mike stopped, it is important that YORhub, and indeed the whole industry, is measuring the same thing across board when it comes to, carbon emissions, so that we can then move towards, the reduction of the carbon. And so in a bid to ensure this, that's why the carbon KPI came about, to develop a KPI that can serve as a benchmarking tool across the industry. So to develop this KPI, we thought it was important to ensure that, we involve the people that are at the center of, measuring, and indeed, that will be responsible for reducing this carbon, which are the construction, the contractors, who are the major stakeholders. So the KPI development started with a stakeholder identification mapping and therefore analysis. So what did we try to do with this is to ensure that, we pick those that are directly involved in monitoring carbon during construction projects. So upon, analyzing this, we also thought it was going to be interesting to include people that from both big and small contractors. So this was ensured during this KPI development. So we involved people from both tier 1, tier 2 contractors. And again, moving forward, the second stage was did a lot of mapping in terms of where does the carbon actually comes from during construction projects. So upon identifying this particular construction process mapping then fed into identifying which particular ones out of all of these okay, emits the most carbon. Again, because all carbon is important, right? All carbon emission is important, but we'll discover that there are some set of activity that emits the most carbon that we need to quickly start, reducing those. And so that was why we had to do what we call carbon hotspot identification. So having done all of this, we then brought the stakeholders together in a focus group discussion. And I believe maybe some of those stakeholders probably be on this call today. And so we ended up then developing, what we call the carbon KPI. And the whole essence of that carbon KPI is to ensure that at the end of the day, it's going to assist contractors. It's going to influence contractor behavior to reduce carbon during construction project. So the next slide, basically, these are some of the KPIs. Indeed, we have about 41 of those KPIs that have been developed, right? But I felt it was going to be interesting to sort of just pinpoint some of those KPIs so that we can have a flavor of what this carbon KPI is about today. So the carbon KPIs have been categorized into both transportation and construction project and construction process, which is the stage A4 and A5 of the life cycle carbon emission. And so this particular categorization, that is the transportation and construction installation process, have also been broken down to different activities that take place during this transportation bit of the construction project. And the transportation has subcategory, which is the material transport, machinery, workers and visitors, waste transport, right? And the construction has about 8, but like I said, this is not the whole thing, it's just to give us a flavor. But out of those 8, I've decided to share part of the machinery, the waste, the material, the workers and operatives. So the KPIs for all of these subcategories are what you can see on my screen. So for instance, under material transport, we from the development of the KPI, both from the discussion, like I said earlier, how we came about this development, we've identified, average distance traveled as some of the KPIs that needs to be measured, renewable fuel usage on site, percentage of material that is purchased locally, indeed, even the amount of the material that is being, used on site as well, also come under that KPI. We have, distance traveled for the machinery, the type of work consumed, and also for the workers and visitors, we have what is the source of fuel that they are using, what is the average distance that they have traveled. For the waste transport, what amount of waste was transported, and also the percentage of reused and recycled waste. Again, we have the units of all of those on the right-hand side of the screen. And for the construction bit, we have for the wastes also, we have, what is the percentage of waste that was indeed sent to the landfill. One thing is to transport all of those waste from site. Another thing is how many percent of that goes to the landfill. Again, how many percent of that was recycled? How many percent of that was reused as secondary material on site? Okay. Also, looking at the machinery and equipment bit, what are the number of operators that have been trained on fuel efficient driving? Because fuel efficient driving have also been identified as a good way of reducing carbon on site. And also, what is the percentage of renewable energy that was used on site for equipment? As we understand that diesel, red diesel, gasoline, and all of that are what we use mostly on site, which are very carbon intensive. So these are some of the KPIs that have been identified so far. And these KPIs, like I said, 41 of them have been sort of sent out to the wider construction industry within the UK. So what we have tried to do is not to just base the development of those KPIs with those particular professionals that we engaged in focus group discussion, but to then throw it open to the wider industry, because we want everybody to fit into that. Because at the end of the day, this KPI, it is envisaged that it's going to be utilized within the UK construction industry. So it was important for us to get feedback from everybody. And so a wider survey has gone out for this, and we are getting responses for that survey. And this is going to then be used to pick the essential KPIs okay, that would then be utilized. And just like Mike said, again, is those essential KPIs can then serve as what is going to be a benchmark for everybody, so that everybody is sort of measuring the same thing, and we can all understand that the reporting we are doing is actually similar. So another wider part of this research is, like I said, after identifying those KPIs, okay, they've gone out. So apart from those KPIs going out, there are other bits that have gone out with those KPIs, and some of those bits are from this model. You can see on the left-hand side the carbon reduction drivers. So we've identified 18 drivers that could assist, contractors to reduce carbon, such as probably introduction of, standards like the PAS 2080, probably incentives for contractors within the bid, if that would drive them to reduce carbon on site, and some of those other drivers. Also, we've identified, 16 barriers that could stop contractors from, carrying out carbon reduction on site. And some of those, barriers could be probably lack of support, from top management within the contractor organization. It could be the lack of collaboration between clients and consultants and contractors, which we found that is actually a big thing, So it could probably be non-availability of even materials, low carbon materials. So we would all find out that when the results of the, survey has come in. And again, all of this is going to be tested against 33 behavioral tendencies that we've identified. Okay, and those behavioral tendencies have been splitted into, perfunctory, that is just basically talking about the particular carbon reduction target that is in the contract. Will that drive contractors to reduce carbon? Could it be voluntary, which is the consummate behavior? Could it be that, they need more relational behavioral tendencies for them to reduce carbon on site? So again, all of these would also be feeding into the carbon reduction strategies, which we found 59 of them that is being utilized within the industry at the moment. Okay, and equally, new ones have been identified. And that has been split into transportation and construction as well, because, different strategies will be adopted in the transportation phase, and different ones are going to be adopted within the construction phase. So like Mike said, once again, is an interesting research. So all of this has gone out. We are getting responses from that, and those responses are going to be analyzed. And we believe that once that has been analyzed, the final result is going to be shared within the wider industry. And we are hoping that this is going to, lead to something fantastic within the industry in terms of, carbon reduction and race to net zero target. So I'm going to stop here. These are my contact details in case anyone needs to get in touch with me to find out more about the research. And we would follow up with some other time with the updates. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Suhaib. And yeah, it's a massive piece of research that you're doing. It's absolutely critical for YORhub. And I think also you talk about the wider industry, and certainly sort of our colleagues in the National Association for Construction Frameworks that that YORhub's a member of, that they're obviously very interested in the work that you're doing. And again, that as part of the National Association, we're keen to make sure that what we're giving is aligned to our clients up and down the country, but also what we're asking our contractors to deliver are aligned again. Taking Colas as an example, and I'll shut up in a moment so we can hear from yourselves. You obviously work across the country. You don't want in Yorkshire to be asked to be measured against one set of KPIs, and then if you're working over in Manchester, then suddenly there's a totally different set. We're acutely aware that we want there to be a good alignment across the whole country, so that we're helping, we're disseminating our best practice, but also we're not making it overly difficult for people, because again, one of the key bits that Suhaib you referred to in terms of the behaviours, that's we don't want to make things more difficult for our framework partners than we have to. So that's enough of me. So Andrew, I believe you're in charge of the slides, so I'll let you take over.
All right, thank you. Okay, so good morning and welcome to this morning's webinar. My name is Andy Gilbanks and I'm Business Development Manager for Colas. So firstly, before we kick off, I'd like to thank the opportunity from Julie and Mike at YORhub for giving Colas the opportunity to share what we're doing in this space. Colas have always been pioneers when it comes to innovation. It's in our DNA. Our name is derived from low carbon surface solutions, coal, ash, cold, asphalt. So not many people know that, but that's where we come from. Like many clients and contractors within our industry, Colas have made a commitment to achieving net zero. And today we'll discuss why we need to make a change, what we are doing, and how collaboration and innovation will aid us in achieving our goals. So a brief agenda here, and taking us through this agenda will be my colleagues, Emma Murray, Paul Aycock and Dan Morgan. So with that, Emma, would you like to take us through your part of the slides?
Thank you, Andy. So first of all, why does decarbonisation matter? So if we were to do nothing, it's been recorded that we would have a 3.2 degree warming. This could be seen as a small number, but I think there's been enough information in the newspapers, etc., to show what the 3.2 degree warming would be. There would be increased flooding of coastal cities, increasing risks for food production. And we've seen that this year with the drier summer that we had. There'll be larger storms, unprecedented heat waves, water scarcity, cyclones, and irreversible loss of biodiversity. And we're talking about this happening in the future. But as I just said, we've had a hot summer. We've seen scarcity with regards to water. We've seen the issues with regards to food production. And we're currently at a 1 degree global warming. So as part of that, we can see what the future holds for us. So the IPCC report was produced, and this saw 234 scientists from 66 countries working together to show what the future holds for us with regards to climate change. What they said was that climate science is clear. Physical science basis shows indisputable it's basically causing climate change. Sorry, I forgot what the word was. It's showing that we're going to have heat waves. It's showing that we're going to have heavy rain, and basically human activity has caused this, and it hasn't been seen for the past 2,000 years. So what that's basically saying to us is that these 5 key takeaways were the outcome of that report, showing that changes in the climate are widespread, rapid, and intensifying. There's no going back from some of the changes in the system. However, some of these can be slowed and others can be stopped by limiting the warming. Unless there are immediate and large-scale greenhouse gas emissions reductions, limiting warming to 1.5 degrees will be beyond reach. And human activities are indisputably causing the climate change. And climate change is already happening in every region on this globe. So some of the outcomes from that, we've had the Paris Agreement, where it was discussed that we want to see no more than 2 degrees global warming, but ideally this should be at 1.5 degrees. We've seen the PPN 621 coming out last year, where all companies who are working on behalf of public procurement need to provide a carbon reduction plan. And we needed to have that being published and onto our website, and it needed to be part of the bidding process, the tendering process. We needed to supply our carbon reduction plans. National Highways, they said that their supply chain needed to sign up to the science-based targets as well. So next slide. So what are scopes 1, 2 and 3? So just as very brief, just so we're all on the same page, scopes 1, 2 and 3 is the way that we can show what our carbon footprint is. It's low-hanging fruit with what we have direct control over, and then which is in scopes 1 and 2. Scopes 1 being the fuel that we have that we use for our vehicles and our buildings, and then scope 2 is our electricity, which we use in our buildings as well. But scope 3 is this larger piece of work that we really need to be getting a handle of. So we have upstream, which is the purchased goods and services, the materials that we're buying, the way that it's transported, the waste, how our people get to work with the commuting and business travel. And then you'll see here on the right-hand side that where we've been recording our scopes 1 and 2 in the past, you'll see here under energy, it only equates to 16% of our carbon footprint. That scope 3 is a massive part of where we need to be putting our minds to. You go to the next slide, please. So what does this mean in the highway sector? So as a company, we've been looking at our strategy. This has come from our COLAS group, and we've been putting in actions to help us to have a look at this. But really, as a company, we need to be having a look at how climate change is going to be integrated into our group strategy, how our people are trained and aware of what their impact has on this subject. We need to be having a look at our plant and our equipment and our buildings, and having a look at how we can decarbonise those, having a look at the products that we buy, having a look at the products that we make as well, and to decarbonise those. Carbon accounting piece is a really big change, and yeah, we need to be increasing the amount of data that we're getting on into our carbon footprint, and therefore we need to be having a look at automating that where possible as well. And then also we need to be really thinking about biodiversity as well. And we need to really get that as being part of our climate change agenda, because without thinking about biodiversity, it's going to be really difficult to control our carbon footprint. So we've got a number of different tools that we use as a company. So far, we've been using Smart Waste, and that's how we're recording our energy usage and our waste and some of our other sustainability data. But we've already seen as well that over the past couple of years, that this was a really good option for us then, but we're really relying on Smart Waste to come along with the journey that we're all on. The next tool that we're using is the Sustainability Supply Chain School. So we're using this to help us to raise the awareness about the subject, both to our own people as well as to our supply chain. And they can really help us with a carbon tool as well. So we can capture the data from our supply chain using their tool, which is free of use. And some of the other actions that we've done as well, we've been reporting our carbon data, we've got awareness and education through different programs that we're doing. We've really got to focus on carbon reduction. So where we're thinking about, previously we've been thinking as an industry, we've been thinking about the price of the job, of the works that we're doing. We really need to be thinking about how is this going to help us to deliver a carbon reduction. So when we're winning new work, how can we do that straight away? How can we deliver a low carbon project straight away? And then innovations, as Andy said, we're an innovative company, and we need to make sure that we're not just thinking about other types of topics. We need to be thinking about carbon as part of our innovation programs. Thanks.
Thank you, Emma. Right, I'll continue on from Emma's slides. Looking from a technical perspective, what we're trying to achieve. And the best way of doing this is actually utilizing comparative tools. In this case, we use a system called Sept, which is a regional use for anybody. This particular package, it looks at all the construction typically in a road, and it breaks it down into indicators, both declarative and quantitative, and this allows you to give a comparison between the basic solution or the standard solutions we've been using in the past, and looking at alternative solutions to see if we can maximize the reduction in carbon, but also, the reduction of water where possible, or energy, or anything else in this case. The system is a very useful one. It's available to everyone, and it comes in quite a detailed report at the end. So what the results are given are accurate as we speak from now. So sort of moving on from this and basing this on the Sept process. Asphalt production here, the reference of 37.5 million tons is something that Colas worldwide does on an annual basis. And as Colas worldwide, we're looking at various forms of reduction, and where is the key areas of that reduction. So if we look at sort of warm mix as a temperature reduction, as an additive, the use of wrap or increasing wraps to prevent to utilize as much as possible. When all this is added up, even on current or even on target, those efforts only actually represent only 5% reduction in that target, which is quite an eye-opener for us. So from that, we're looking at, well, how can we increase that reduction target? And some of the key areas that we're looking at, again, on this slide, we got a classical solution on the top, which gives us a breakdown of the individual parts, as mentioned before, on how that carbon is calculated. And then we look at alternative solutions. So we can do as many as we want, but it's quite interesting to just demonstrate the type of other products that are available that would make a bigger or include a significant increase in that carbon reduction. So if we were to say increasing to 50% wrap, we would have an increase then to 13%. If we were to move to a completely different system where we utilize other resources that are recycled, and combining that with mixed designs and so forth, we can come up with some larger numbers, up to 41% on one particular product. It could be others, but this is a demonstrating one to show. If we could see onto the next slide, this particular one, how the reduction is made in this case is actually through performance. So the Megabase is a product that utilizes reclaimed rail ballast. So it's a secondary use of a perfectly usable aggregate. And from that, looking at the solutions in the bottom corner there, particularly on the mixed designs, we can show not only can we achieve similar or greater performance utilizing these materials, but we can also reduce the thicknesses of the materials as well. And in combination of these two, this is where we can really sort of generate significant reductions in carbon alongside warm mix, cold mixes, and so forth. So it's a way of sort of looking outside the box and looking at alternative ways to try and achieve these figures and get it within the timeline. So this is a good example of a product that does exist, and it is being used where needed, but it just highlights the areas of where reclaimed materials can be utilized and it's not affecting performance or indeed cost. Again, this is another area moving away to an in situ process, which is a recycling in situ process. Again, Sevi uses the conventional process of basically playing out an inlay. Retread is, as I said, is an in situ process, and you can see the vast reduction in particularly transport, because obviously it's done in situ. But those comparative results actually gives it a very significant percentage saving in carbon. And that's basically because of transport, but it's also because we're utilising the existing road structure as in essence as a quarry, and we're putting cold bitumen emulsions in there to achieve the performance. So overall, it gives you that significant drop. And again, this is something, you know, these technologies are becoming available. These particular processes now are BS standards as of last year. So there's a host of opportunities to be able to use alternative solutions, and using the Sevi process is certainly a way of demonstrating that to clients and to your fellow workers. Moving on, again, Colas has developed a series of in situ recycling systems. Obviously, they've been around for quite a long time, particularly with foam. These systems uses bitumen emulsion, so you get full capsulation. The main differences between these processes is that it's a continuous train. So this could be on quite a high profile roads, where you're planing at the front of the train. It's being mixed with the emulsion and any other additives. It's then put through a paver and then compacted, and then the traffic can go straight on it. So it's a continuous system that doesn't require transportation of materials, and again, it utilizes the existing road structure. Yields, we've got some trials coming up. But typically we're looking at 10,000 square meters per day activity on pretty much full width lanes. As long as they're long and straight, the train can be quite long, but this is really targeting the larger roads structures that we can do in very short periods. And as you can see from the picture, it can also be carried out at night time. So what's happening around the world? Again, there's two areas really that we're looking at. We're looking at alternatives to bitumen. So we have a Vegicol, which is a bio-based binder, and we have an asphalt, which is used of recycled materials from our colleagues in Australia. So Vegicol, as it sort of pronounces, is a plant-based binder. It's a clear binder, but it has a very low carbon footprint compared with conventional bitumens. It's utilized both in hot mixes and could also be used in surface dressing binders as well. Again, hot or cold, as it mentioned there. There's quite a few trials happening in Europe on this particular product, and we're looking to do some trials in the UK on this as well. Other areas, again, as I said before, with Australia, obviously a lot of the conventional materials which we're already sort of aware of is exposure to fumes because of hot mix, hence we're going down to warm mixes. The resources that we have to utilize and the amounts of gases that they generate through heat, cost opportunities, and obviously the key area is also quality, to make sure that we can achieve the same performances and life cycle costs on alternatives to what would be the conventional materials. So this one on Eco 5, which should be on the next slide. This is a process that has been developed, as I said, in Australia, and it utilizes 5 components all in one mix. And actually the performance is slightly higher than the conventional material. So not only are we looking at warm mix activity, we're also looking at a high use of wrap, but also introduction of crushed glass, recycled crushed glass, chrome rubber, slags, fly ashes. There's a series of them, and they give you different performances depending on what you want. The key area with these type of materials is that we're not just putting all these materials in because we can. They're there for a reason. So each one has a particular requirement to improve workability for inlay, let's say, or it's very good for rut resistance in high temperatures. All of these are allowed within the structure, and the trials have been down for several years, and the performance is still quite is up there. It hasn't deteriorated at all. But I think on the next slide we will see the sort of the makeup on there. So we got the performance of the mix at the top against the standard AC20 and an AC14 surface course, and the type of material usage or recycled that we're using per kilometre, as mentioned there, is quite significant. Interesting, on the paving temperature is 90 degrees as well. So all in all, the whole process is being obviously monitored, and we have full information on these types of materials. But it's just to demonstrate really what Colas, from a worldwide perspective, is trying to achieve, to try and reduce the amount of carbon use in our particular side of the industry. And these obviously can be communicated with around the world, and certainly into the UK, which we're hoping to achieve. So that's me.
Thanks, Paul. Dan, we have about 8 minutes, so no pressure.
Oh, I think I can get it done in that time. Thanks, Paul. Look, I think I get the simplest part of the presentation, really. I think we've heard so far on how we're looking to move to track carbon. We've heard about the burning platform, which talks about what's going to happen if we don't move to a low carbon industry, and Paul's shown us things which are there on where we're moving to across the world. Thankfully, my bit can talk us through some subtle changes that are available to us right now in our industry. So the mill to mine strategy, what we've got, and the wonderful thing about sort of our industry then, is that it's been going a very long time, and we really do understand it. The use of quarried aggregates in the UK, generally how we get there, we identify where the mineral is. We identify what the need for that mineral would be in the industry. We then move through a simple process of scheduling, and I say simple because it could take up to about 10 years to go through planning to get a new quarry opened. We open, we drill, we blast, we excavate, we move the material through the quarry, we do primary reduction, and then we knock the material down into the sizes that we'd like to use in the industry. They either go out to be sold, or we stockpile them ready for sales in the future. So it's a base industry. It's very, very simple. The one thing that I would say is we cannot manufacture road surface aggregates anywhere. What we can do is we can resize the mineral that's in the ground in the areas that we've got it. And what I mean by that is that these products that we're using for surface course materials in the UK right now, they are limited in their resource. There's currently less than 10 68 PSV quarries in the UK. A lot of those are situated in Wales, and a lot of the resource then, even though we're gifted with and blessed with a lot of mineral in the UK, a lot of the mineral that we would need to replenish this depleting resource with sits within national parks and forests, and to be fair, it's very, very unlikely that we will see us moving into these areas for the future. Move me on, please, Andrew. So what we've got to do with the materials that we have, and with the quarries and the opportunities we have at the moment, is we all have a responsibility to get involved on the specification and influencing what type of materials we're going to be using in our roads for the future. We've used and talked about recycling. We've heard a lot about waste management on sites. What we've not talked a lot about is the waste generation back at the primary unit. So this is where we need all of the people on this this slide here to be involved. Currently, go on, you can take me forward this one. Currently, what we're doing as an industry is we are stipulating the use of 10 and 14 millimeter aggregates. What that means to our production is that on a typical quarry making 300,000 tons, the reduction rates that we get to get 10 and 14 millimeter products to go into our surface course aggregates, we take 1/3 of saleable product and we leave 2/3 of a low value waste. So that's your 6 mil, your dust, your 20 mil products. Generally what happens is your plus 14 will go back through into recirculation and will get crushed down again, and we'll make some more 10 mil and some more 14 mil, but it will also make a lot more 6 mil and a lot more dust, and it will add to this problem of waste generation. This is not a stockpile ready to be sold. I won't tell you who owns this site. It's a gritstone quarry in Wales. That is a waste pile. That is what's happening in our industry at the moment, where we keep generating or requesting 10 and 14 mil, and then by way of that, we're generating that 2/3 waste, therefore being stockpiled, and it is sterilizing the reserve, which is depleting and reducing. We've probably got current volumes at the moment, probably about less than 10 years availability of 68 in the UK. So we are sterilizing the existing material that's available to us to use because we're not using a full suite of products. Now that's one quarry. We go on to the next one. That's another one in South Wales. That is exactly the same type of problem that we are seeing in our quarries around the UK, where we are specifying, as I said, 10 and 14 mil, just taking 1/3 of the material. So coming back to what I was saying earlier, if we're looking to produce, as I said, 300,000 tons, we're only actually selling or got a saleable product on the first time round of 100,000 tons. Now, I said this is easily changed in our industry at the moment, because we as an industry, we're very innovative. We come up with great solutions. This product that's being laid here is a 20 mil SMA. The 20 mil SMA will give the same density and the same performance, the same durability as a 14 mil SMA. The texture depth is a little bit higher than what we'd normally go for, but it's a one pass laid up to 75 millimeters in thickness. You can use it as an integrated regulating layer. As I said, single pass. Therefore, you can reduce your time on site. We can reduce the carbon cost of bringing materials to site, and the use of going back over the same area over again for multiple sort of passes of the paver and the rollers. If we don't like a 20 millimeter because we think it's too open, we can also use a 6 millimeter SMA. Now this gives us a texture of around about 1. Nice, great, tight, very well knitted together, smooth rides, very, very quiet, very durable surface. The product is very, very tightly compacted. Therefore, you get a very, very good durable surface from this. And again, what we're doing is utilizing that full suite of products available to us that the quarry's producing. What does that mean moving forward? Well, it goes to say that if you're utilizing more of the products that are available to you, suddenly you're getting a better spread of the materials, and therefore you're reducing your waste. Bear in mind that if these sites weren't effectively extracting holes in the ground, and they weren't taking the material out and leaving a hole in the ground to be able to put something back in again, this material would have to go somewhere. It would have to go to landfill. So effectively what we're doing is focusing on landfill that's generated at waste on site, but we're not looking right away back through the supply chain to see what waste are generated back at the supply point. So, you know, it's a 100% improvement on what we would see on the site on the basis of 33% for 10 and 14, and suddenly we're up to over 2/3 now. So the utilization of products from a site, if we sort of got together as an industry and were more open to taking 20 mil and 6 mil across the board. These products are not new, as I said. There are HAPAS, BBA accreditations for all of these. All of your suppliers, not just Colas, this isn't a sales pitch, all of your suppliers have these products available to them to be picked up off the shelf and utilized in the industry right now. Some of these, I'm sure, would offer you a significant saving on the cost of the materials going into the product of the projects as well, on the basis that what's not having to happen here is 2 or 3 passes of an aggregate going through and creating your 10 and your 6. Andrew, I think that's me done on my bit. I think I got you there in your 8 minutes. So
yeah, about time. Thank you. Okay, then, so to kind of just really wrap this up, from a Colas perspective, we think there's 3 potential actions we can take away. So for clients and contractors, you could identify carbon production across the scopes 1, 2, and 3, the carbon that you produce and the carbon that your stakeholders produce, and back to Dan's point, where you source your materials from. You can identify and develop your carbon reduction roadmaps. And then lastly, and probably more importantly, collaborate across the sector with stakeholders, sharing best practice carbon utilising the wider YORcivil community. I think that for me, achieving net zero we will only get there by collaboration and innovation, working together, as Dan mentions, around changing specifications whilst achieving performance of materials and products. And I would like us to see us all collaborate in the future. And it's something that I've been discussing with YORcivil, how we can get more clients and contractors involved. And with that, thank you for listening to our presentation. We welcome any questions. There's a couple of email addresses there if you want to take note. If you've got any questions that you want to ask outside. But I'll hand back to Mike, if that's okay, Mike.
That's absolutely brilliant. Thanks so much, Andy. Again, so to all of yourselves, Emma, Dan and Paul, that's been absolutely fantastic. Fully appreciate we've probably gone slightly longer on time than originally anticipated, but I think it was really important to do that. There's so much useful information there that, hopefully the people on the call have got a lot out of. Now, I know we're coming up to an hour, so I don't want us to overrun. Now, we have had one question come through. There's a few questions I have myself, but I may have to hold on, and I'll speak to yourself separately about those. I think the question we had through was, I see VegCol recently publicised. Is this the same product that was first taken to market in 2007? And if so, how has it changed in the last 15 years? I don't know if that's something
probably
was
yourself.
Yes, yeah. VegCol was introduced in the beginning of some 15 years ago now. That was based on straight from design, and obviously as that was brought in, which was innovative at the time, the availability of the correct raw materials and the trials and something has developed over time. And so the new VegCol, which is sort of VegCol 2, which is original, is really a development of the research and all the historic data that we have on sites, and also with the improvement and looking at carbon reduction, excuse me, on the raw materials. The material now is the equivalent really of a pen grade bitumen. It can be modified. It's still clear, so you can use it as with decorative aggregates on surface dressings or whatever. But it can also be used or utilised as a standard bitumen as well, and can be modified, which in the past it couldn't have been. So it's becoming more of a direct relationship to bitumen quality and bitumen capabilities, which allows obviously more scope for these type of products, which typically have about a 30% reduction in carbon conventional bitumen. So it's an ongoing development. It doesn't stop. We're still looking, innovating, and looking at new raw materials that allow us to extend the performance still greater on that. If that answers the question.
No, that's brilliant. Thanks for that, Paul. So I think that's the only question we've sorry, the slides will be available following the meeting, so I'll send those out. Also, just to briefly pick up on Andy's closing point with regards to collaboration, one of the things that we are looking at is setting up quarterly sustainability workshops. The attendees to this webinar will certainly get an invite to that. But again, Andy, you're absolutely right. We're very keen to have those regular workshops looking at specific sort of elements of sustainability and carbon with our framework partners and with our clients. So YORhub as well will be to facilitate those discussions. So yeah, we'll be looking to try and organise one of those later in the year, certainly. I think with the sort of timescales in mind, I really hope the seminar's been of interest to people. I can see, we've had a lot of attendees, which is brilliant. Thanks so much for your time today. By all means, get in touch with us afterwards if you have any questions. But otherwise, we'll send around the slides, and I believe, Julie, we've been recording the seminar, so that will be made available. I'm imagining. Yes, there will be. That's grand. Okay, if that's everything, thanks so much for your time, everyone, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Cheers all.